Okay, so this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Next, what you want to do is you want to take everything out of your kit. Okay, so you have all your pieces, you have your cardboard, you have gloves, which I haven't mentioned in the last video. The epoxy is going to get very sticky, so when you do this process, you want to make sure you're either outside, in the garage, in the basement. Don't be anywhere your parents are going to get mad at you for getting this stuff on the carpet. It doesn't come out of clothes, so definitely wear something that you don't really mind losing. If you're careful, you shouldn't get this everywhere. It's not the messiest thing in the world, but you know, if it gets on something, that's kind of it. Okay, so normally what we would do is we would take the carbon, the pieces that are actually going to go into the part, we would weigh them. The weight of the carbon would be the weight of the epoxy. Now, since you don't really have the ability to weigh the carbon at home, and you don't really have the ability to weigh how much is poured out of this, effectively, I sat down and did a calculation. This is probably only going to need about 5 grams of resin, and this is good for at least 25 grams. But the paintbrush will actually soak up a little bit of that resin, so it's not all actually going to go onto the part. So what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze out about half of this, okay? You're going to mix it and you're going to apply that, okay? So I'll give you a quick run through of what I'm about to do. As we did in the last video, the surface has been released 3 times, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour out the epoxy onto our mixing tray that comes with your kit, so don't throw out the plastic. There's a little mixing tray on the top. Okay, so I'll pour that out into the tray. I'm going to use the popsicle stick to stir it around. I'm going to do a light layer of epoxy on the surface before I put the carbon fiber on. I'm going to put the carbon fiber on one layer at a time, applying the resin onto the layer, and you know, saturating the whole entire thing with it. Then I'm going to put the red peel ply on. This peel ply has tiny little holes in it, okay? So this is a very waxy surface, okay? It will not stick to the cured resin. So after the resin dries, this will peel right off, okay? And this is our breather / bleeder layer. Basically, when you're vacuum bagging, you want the air to be sucked out throughout the whole entire part. This allows that suction to get around the whole part, and it also absorbs resin. So even though we're not using it for its vacuum bagging purpose, we are still allowing it to absorb some of the excess resin out of the part. And the reason we do that is to make it stronger per unit weight. So it needs resin, but the less resin it has in it, the stronger it is per unit weight, because the carbon is the stronger component in the composite mixture than the epoxy resin is. Okay, so I'll get started. So I'll take my cap of this off. All right, I will squeeze out about half into the mixing tray. Come on, there we go. All right, so it comes out in equal parts. We're gonna leave that to the side here on our cardboard. All right, I'm gonna mix that around. A lot of times you wonder, oh, how long should I mix this for? A lot of times I tell people, well, do how long you think is long enough, and then do another 20 seconds. So really it shouldn't take much more than like, 30 to 40 seconds to mix this whole thing, or less. But yeah, so just try to do it as sufficiently as you can. Once it looks pretty homogeneous, like all the same consistency, then you're probably ready to stop. It should be mentioned, this is not the normal type of resin, epoxy resin that we're going to use. It is epoxy, which is the normal, material that we use. But this is a much more viscous form of epoxy than the type of epoxy we normally get. We're using this simply so that we could send this to you with greater ease, and it's already all sealed and everything for us, so we don't have to worry about pouring our own portions and having all this sort of caustic stuff leak out. All right, so now we'll take our brush, we'll get some of that resin, and we'll blot out an area here. It's very thick stuff, so it's probably not going to smear so well. So you're going to want to blot it like that. You're going to want to blot your whole entire area pretty much of your surface, of your aluminum surface. All right, so we're blotting this out, we're blotting this out. All right. This stuff is a little bit thicker, so we might need an extra. Another thing, if you see any paintbrush bristles in the resin, you could sort of try and drag them out with the brush and pick them off the end of the brush once that's done. That will help the part look a little bit nicer when it comes out. Okay, so we will apply our first layer of carbon. Make sure there's nothing on the bottom layer there so that it looks pretty when it comes out. All right, we will take the resin and we'll apply it. So we're pregnating the part. It's a little bit smelly. You could use a mask if you'd like. It's not super caustic like some other paints and stuff like that. But you do definitely want to be in a ventilated area. Again, if your parents say if you have like a fan in your basement window, that's probably okay. If you're in a garage that has an open garage door, that's probably fine as well. All right, so we got our first layer on there. We got it sufficiently wet. You want to look at it at various angles, make sure it's nice and wet out. Okay, so we're putting our second one on, making sure we line it up with the first one. You want it to be consistently 2 layers thick. Okay. Looks like we might actually need a little bit more resin, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more right now. Okay. Now you want to be pretty quick with this stuff. It is a 5-minute cure time now, or sorry, 5-minute epoxy, that's what it says. What that really means is it has a 5-minute working life. So it can stay in this little tray here for 5 minutes. But after that, it's really not very good. All right, so I'm going to mix this one up a little bit more. It's going to take another 20 to 30 seconds. Or sorry, 30 to 40. All right, that looks about mixed up to me. All right, so we will apply this to our carbon, getting it nice and wet out. Okay, cool. That's looking pretty good. All right. Okay, that's looking pretty good actually. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's sufficiently wet out. This paintbrush is probably not going to be any good anymore. You can save it and you could rinse it out with acetone. Probably just throw it out. I don't know what the next time you're going to be making carbon fiber is, so this is disposable. Throw that out, as well as your mixing tray if you're done with that. And your epoxy here, you could obviously use this for a number of other things. And so you could probably just put your cap on. That'll be saved for a good long time. All right, so next layer we want to put on is this peel ply. Okay, we are going to put on, next we're going to put on our breather / bleeder layer. Okay, that's this one. And then the next we're going to move to the floor, and we're going to put the weights on it as well as the garbage bag. So I'll show you how to do that in the next clip. All right, now we've moved our operation to the floor. As we left off, we had put the breather layer on. So next what we want to do is we want to put the garbage bag down. So this is going to basically protect your weights, whatever it might be, from the stickiness underneath. So effectively just make the garbage bag into as flat a sheet as you possibly can that covers the whole entire area. So if it's oversized like this one, that's fine. Now this will stick to the surface of the aluminum a little bit, but since it's separated by the peel ply layer, it will not stick to your part. You just got to make sure your peel ply covers the carbon fiber completely. So there we go. All right. Now for my circumstance, my weight scenario, I have all these weights here. Okay. So I need a sort of flat panel like this. All right. So something like that. Now you can use a book for your flat panel here. You just want to make sure again that your garbage bag is big enough. It's way, larger in area than the book, just so that the book doesn't get messed up or anything like that. I found a cheap piece of aluminum. Piece of plywood will work fine too. Just anything flat that'll get a nice, good press on there. So now I'm just going to move this guy on there. All right, so we have the part. It's weighted right now. It's the epoxy's mixed in there, so it's curing. So we're going to leave this here for a while. It says 5-minute epoxy again. That's the working life. I would imagine it would be totally cured in about 8 hours from now. So usually it's a good thing to leave overnight. Make sure it's completely hardened before we release it. In the next video, I will go over that process.